And now please welcome back all of the Ignite speakers to do a panel with Mike Lee. Please step to the stage, all of the Ignite speakers, and welcome them back.
All right, we are short on time. We are in the weeds, as we say, and I'm going to get us going right now. You met Spencer, Baker, Victor, Sarah. Justin Shimmick is going to join us, CEO of Matson, which you guys heard from before. And we also have Mark Rice here, raise your hand, from Google. He runs risk management there. Thank you all for being on this panel. So we've covered a lot today, and there's a lot in this Slido that I know we didn't get to before. So I'm throwing some audibles here. I'm going to hit some of these up as well. Maybe let's start with Baker. I'm fortunate, I feel fortunate that I got AI when I was 46 because I already know how to write. I already know how to cook. I already know how to do a lot of this stuff. What's your view on kind of the younger generation who maybe hasn't built up that innate skill? And is there concerns about kind of using AI too much as a crutch and not developing that spidey sense? Like, how do you think about that?
Well, earlier today, there's a whole set of presentations around using AI as a thought partner. And that's really a real key, all the way down to my children who are in their early 20s, to everyone who's starting for us, is that encouraging them to use the tools and to train the tools. And the challenge is the tools are changing so quickly, right, that you've got to be on top of it. So it's really allowing people to have time for the training, allowing them to experiment, actually allowing them to experiment on the clock.
Okay. So is the thought like sort of, my kid never learned how to write cursive? Is it some of those things that will kind of lose some of these vestigial limbs, so to speak, over time?
Well, I'm old. I'm probably the oldest person on this panel, right? And when I was in third grade, they banned the use of calculators because I wouldn't learn my timetables.
Yeah.
Right? I'm an engineer. I was the first class not to use a slide rule. We got over it, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not really worried.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Building off of that, Victor, how do you guys see that at Burger King with the patty idea that you just showed us here?
Yeah, so we try to make it as easy as possible, right? We've got everybody from power users of AI to I have never seen this, get away from me, right? So we try to build the system in a way that invites questions, right? So every time you activate Patty, she'll say, hey, do you want me to look into this or this or this? And we've seen a lot of success with that. Anybody that sort of takes that leap into AI, we've seen incredible retention and usage increase.
Okay, guys. And Spencer, you are in the literal eye of the hurricane here. I want to ask you directly, where do you think AI has helped the most in kind of the food service operation? And where do you think maybe there's some ideas that maybe are overhyped or not really working yet?
Can you guys hear me okay? Yeah. I see chefs overworked. I know chefs are incredible at things and they don't have the tools or skills to do things that are required for the job. And I think chefs need to be in the kitchen and chefs need to be cooking and chefs need to be working with their staff. And oftentimes do I see chefs like without an apron on or chefs with like not one splatter on their chef's coat. So I think the opportunity is to give chefs the tools and skills to understand the technology that's changing incredibly quickly. I work for one of the AI companies and I'm still like catching up with the times because it's changing so often. So I think we need to do a better job of getting the world to understand like what this technology can do. And the chefs need to know how they can use it so that the chefs can then work directly with the team. I don't think we're there yet, but I think we need to get there like very fast. And it starts with just making an effort and a commitment and trying.
Got it, okay. And then moving to you, Justin, we saw a lot this morning from Steve and Michael, but if you look out to 2035, right, and you've got the tools you've got in place right now, how do you think we might expect the grocery store landscape and the recipe landscape to change, right? Because you're often seeing a lot of these new ideas, you're birthing them, helping birthing them, right? But where do you think that aggregates to in 2035?
Yeah, I think in 2035, I think there's going to be experiences that are more personal, that don't feel like prescriptions. I think products that are built for people. I think in this conference we've learned a lot about GLP-1s and how consumers now taking them or not might be thinking that whole rethinking that value equation. And I think ultimately, products are going to have to be nutritionally dense and hedonically dense. I think your hedonism that you led with earlier, I think is really, really important. I think AI is going to be an important enabler in that because it will allow us, not just as a thought partner, but now a partner in action to help decode all the metadata that's present in our food choices. So, looking underneath the brand and also just the top-level claims to understand all the deep nuances of nutrition and sustainability and allowing us to choose those products. So I think being able to, have those products available for us and with AI is an important enabler.
Got it. Okay. And then on to you, Mark. You run risk management over at Google. What does that job kind of mean to you, and how has AI kind of inserted itself to maybe adapt it or change it? Because you arguably are also in the eye of the hurricane, a different hurricane, but yes.
Yeah, I think that the hurricanes that we're talking about are here. You guys have been talking about these hurricanes coming for years, and now we have to adapt to it. We look at AI to help us to both predict what's coming as well as help us to kind of meet our user where they are. So there's a lot of personalization, as you said, but there's a lot of expectation from our end user of give me what I want, and I don't want to come to what you have. And we think that a lot of AI will help us get there and help us really start to understand who our customers are. They're changing a lot faster than they used to. If you think about 10 and 20 years ago, you would aspire to go to a certain restaurant because you've heard about it and maybe you couldn't afford it, and then you could finally get there to have this amazing meal that you've only dreamt about. Now it's users trying to, it's more that we're trying to meet what the user is expecting us to have, and we have to sort of guess what it is. And we believe AI will help us anticipate their needs a little bit better.
Yeah, predictive service and something like that. Okay. And Sarah, to you, you work obviously in food waste, and ReFed's goal is to cut food waste by half, roughly, right? And what happens if we win? What happens if that happens?
Well, I think that's incredibly hard. So I will say it is a bold, audacious goal. But I think in order to get there, we have to redesign the food system in order to get to that goal. In that place, we would have a supply chain that is truly interconnected from farm to fork, which I think creates a whole bunch of byproduct benefits, not just about food waste reduction, but we have surplus that is being recovered and redistributed to folks who are in need. We have a reduction in food insecurity. We have kitchens that are running efficiently and effectively that aren't being bogged down. We have landfills that are not overflowing. One thing that folks don't recognize is today, the number one thing that goes into landfill is food. Creates a heck of a lot of methane. The biggest thing that we can do is to keep food out of landfills, and that is actually an emergency stop break related to the methane that's related to that. And so for us, if we stopped this, if we achieved our goal, we could potentially see immediate climate benefits based off how much methane is related to food waste. And I don't know, it's an exciting possibility.
Okay, got it. Now, I want to pivot now because we got about 22 questions in the Slido, and almost half of them relate to this question, which I also had too. So when it comes to using AI, right, I understand the vision of how, that can potentially be used to make an operation more efficient, reduce food waste, use all these things. With regards to the sustainability of AI, do you think there's a world where we can offset the resource usage that AI and data centers have by getting savings on things like food waste, things like carbon capture? Because I think that's the equation that I think maybe we're all banking on, And what's your thought on that? And I want to hear from the rest of the panel too.
Yeah, I want to hear from the rest of the panel on that too. I think that we don't have the perfect equation yet for that. What I would say is that we wholeheartedly believe that there is AI for good, and there truly is a potential for it to create a dramatic effect, especially when it comes to climate, water resilience, land use optimization, significant things that really impact our environment. And we're very conscious about how we use it and how we support its use. But unfortunately, there's not a perfect equation, and maybe folks will share of the energy as well as the water usage related to that. And Those systems are also evolving too. So what's interesting is what is actually what I would call sustainable AI use today is going to look very different in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, as those systems actually evolve as well and they get better about using resources. So it's balanced. I don't know the perfect answer, but I will say that we are leaning in because the potential is infinite in many ways.
Yeah, yeah. I'd love to hear some of the others chime in. Yeah, Mark, thoughts on this?
Yeah, as a company that is building a lot of these data centers, I would tell you that today the energy and the water, the supposed water waste is really because it's an inexpensive product and byproduct right now. And I encourage and applaud that society is saying this has to stop. And we on the food team are even leaning in and saying, how can we help harness some of this discharge of heat and water and reuse it to even grow food on the data centers for data center teams and local communities. So we're looking to partner with local communities, bring their farmers in within our data center systems to even farm there with some of these byproducts. So by no means is that the final solution, but we're on that path as we continue to regulate to get to a better place.
So from what you've seen inside, Google, obviously there's lots of things you can do to like kind of optimize data centers. Like, what's the state of the union on that? In terms of from everything from making models more efficient to recycling to energy use. I mean, do we have to wait for nuclear fusion to come online for this to kind of work? But like, I'd love to hear some of the things you've seen inside of Google because you guys are obviously formidable in this space.
Well, I mean, I can't talk about all of it, but I can talk about it from a food side with this group. We put the same sort of standards in place there on sustainability. We have Lean Path in place at all of our data centers to ensure that we're trying to do as much as we can in the back of house, reduce food waste at the front of house as much as possible. We are starting to use AI even with our menu choices to make sure that we're providing what our users actually want, and it's a different product for a data center worker than you might see at a cafe in one of our offices with software engineers, which would be different than a sales team. So, we're trying to be as efficient as possible like everywhere else.
Okay. Anyone else want to chime in?
I'd like
Justin?
to say, yeah, I mean, I think large food manufacturers have been using AI, especially machine learning, for quite some time to optimize operations. I think about optical sorting, I think in factories. So in a lot of ways, there's a great offset. I think, in this kind of day and age, especially with generative AI, speeding up the cycle times for new food product innovation, that can be a resource-intensive process, trials, waste that's just associated with kind of inventing the new. And so being able to speed up those cycle times and getting to that answer more quickly is a great offset and avoidance.
So the efficiency offset is sort of the thought that you might do more impactful work, but less of it and spend more time in there.
Get to the answer faster.
Yeah. Baker, Victor, anyone else?
I'm an optimist. So the answer is yes, we can achieve it. The first thing is we have to have the will.
Yeah.
And then we actually have to use this technology to help us achieve the result. We can achieve anything we want to achieve. And so we now have the evolution of superintelligence. That superintelligence can help us achieve our sustainability goals. So I know it's a self-fulfilling thing because we have this obsession on compute and the need for compute. But at the same time, if we have the will to become sustainable, then we will use that cycle to actually drive the sustainability.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I think the role of the team member is changing so drastically, right? They're going from producers, right, to more guest-facing, working the lobby. So as AI enables more efficient production, right, and the product variance in a QSR is enormous, right? And typically we have somebody, either fresh out of high school, sort of ordering millions of dollars worth of food, right? So there is a lot of waste that happens there. So the offset opportunity is enormous, and I'm really excited to see it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, got it. Let's go to a question from the Slido here. Someone on the panel mentioned AI helping us make healthier choices. So where are the plans to use that with BK or other QSRs, and is the goal kind of healthy food? So maybe how can AI kind of advance the proliferation of healthy food and nudge towards healthier choices? Maybe I'll start with Victor and then
Yeah,
get
absolutely.
around.
And I think the era of everybody having their own application could die very soon, right? There's a lot, the whole world is speculating on what is going to be the primary engagement layer of your day-to-day phone interaction, right? Are you going to go into your Twitter? Are you going to go into your Burger King app? Or is it going to be one layer higher where you engage with the AI, right? And you ask AI, hey, will you order me a Whopper? I'm close to this store, right? And they do it for you. So I think we have to rethink how we appear, right, for you guys as consumers. So I think in that, there's going to be a lot of personalization, right? Because nobody knows more about you than your AI in your phone, right? So a lot of that will come natural. If you're a healthy eater, AI will suggest things that meet your dietary restrictions or your needs. So I think it's a very exciting time, and excited to see this this layer really grow.
Yeah. Spencer, this next one's for you, because I want to touch on a theme that I've really had a lot of experience with in the past 6 months, which is the idea of vibe coding and creating your own things. I would actually argue that the vibe coding capabilities of AI far outpace the value that the chat does, in my opinion. We've even seen, your competitors at Claude, they're shipping actual features made from vibe coding, and I'm sure you guys are doing the same there too. How do you think a person in food can kind of approach that, right? Because it can seem intimidating going from the pretty chat window to the terminal or something like that, but how have you kind of maybe used vibe coding in your food operation at all, or seen other people do it?
You just try. And you just, whether you talk to it or whether you type it, you try. We've built multiple agents that can help my team. We can go in and ask, how many people did I feed at this site? And how many people was I supposed to feed at this site? And what's the breakdown between breakfast, lunch, and dinner? How many people came into the office last week? Give me a split between peak days and non-peak days, because we don't require all of our employees to come in the office Monday through Friday. So it's all of our programming is based on assumptions. And then we take a look at our actuals, and we compare our actuals based on those assumptions. So instead of making a phone call or setting up a meeting or sending an email, we talk to our agent, and our agent pulls information from all of our different data sets. We're also scaling incredibly fast, and we're able to look at how many people are traveling and how many people are coming into the office 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks down the road. And then we're able to get notifications when more people book travel last minute. So we know how much people that we need to feed, and then we know how much food to produce, and then we can try to minimize waste. So these are all sort of agents that we've deployed in the last couple weeks. One thing I'm working on is a budget agent that's able to take a look at my forecast and my actuals and look at variance, then put together presentations for executive level review and price per person per day, and look closer at metrics and all that kind of stuff. So it's happening incredibly fast. It's overwhelming when you think about it, but it's not as overwhelming when you start to do it. And then when you start to do it, the models understand you, and they remember you. Yeah. And they remember what you like, and they remember what you don't like. So that's sort of how we're approaching it. I do believe that if you work for a big company here, they're going to know how often you're using AI, and they're going to push you to meet a certain level of AI, and they're going to call you out if you're not using AI. So I would just try it. I would look at it like riding a bike. You just got to get on, and you got to pedal, and you got to go, and when you fall, you're going to know how to get up, and you're going to know how to get back on, and you're going to keep going straight.
If I could just mention about vibe coding, it's interesting. We have a public-facing chatbot. We have a huge database. I have a huge data team. I'm very blessed by that. I also have a product team, and I have 5 developers on staff because of all the products and tools that we put out to the market to help people. Yeah. Those developers are irreplaceable. They are incredible. We have really intense, very interesting data models that are very complex. But what we're using vibe coding for today is to say, what's the next tool? How do we do product briefs, and how do we do internal? And so vibe coding is helping us do that without the support of our developers who are fully used, and say, can I actually change that model and now look in Brazil instead of the US model? What are the things that I can do? And vibe coding helps us do so much of that prototyping and work behind the scenes. Early phase, I call it the best creative brief ever. I can now optimize a tool and say, hey, this is vibe coded. development team. This, though, is what users are saying is actually what they need
Yeah.
to create change.
Yeah.
And so I think there's something really massive unlock here for us to
Yeah.
use even people who are not highly technical as us actually saying to create, what could we create that could actually create substantive change?
Yeah, and I think that's maybe the unlock that I have, and I would encourage, I think vibe coding might be a great way for actually skeptics to get a redefinition of what AI can do, because I think if you look at a chat, if you look at an image generation, if you look at this and you're kind of just like, whatever, I would encourage you to dive into kind of vibe coding, because then you can build tools that help your mission and your role. Shameless plug, my website, mikelee.food, has a vibe coding for food industry people, everything you need to get it started, and there's 100 prompts that you can use in every vertical, from restaurants to agriculture and all that stuff. So mikelee.food, check that out. Sarah, I want to stay with you. We've obviously, for today's technology themed very much too, but I think, like, how do you look at kind of technology, regulation, and culture as all being contributors to kind of advancing the goal of kind of reducing food waste? And how do you think those three kind of play off of each other? And is there one that's more potent than the other? Or like, what's your view on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're an interconnected flywheel. So you can't do one without the other. We need regulation to keep organics out of landfill, et cetera. But I think that the most important out of all of them is culture. And insert any sustainability problem here, I'm going to talk about food waste. But until the social norm at a cultural level is, it's just as bad to throw out half of your meal as it is to litter on the side of the road, nothing is going to really change. I liken it, though, in food businesses. Until we say that I just need to hit my margin target and waste is okay up to an acceptable level, until that actually becomes culturally apropos in a restaurant and in food service, I don't think we're going to see the change we need. I think if we pull that culture piece out in business and in society, the flywheel is going to just stop.
What do you think the pressure points are to kind of influence culture towards this, right? Because I think we're talking kind of to ourselves a little bit when food waste, and I go back out in the real world, and none of my family really thinks about food waste, really.
Oh.
So how do you reconcile that?
Yeah. I think that the biggest opportunity is chefs and the voice of chefs who influence. And then it's every touch point we have. There's messaging that you can do in retail. There's messaging that you can do through lots of different influencers like yourself. But I think it starts with chefs, because they actually pour into us in invisible and very visible ways, whether that's social media or through the experience that you have in a restaurant. Them using an upcycled ingredient, et cetera, putting composting. All of those are little micro signals that this is actually what you want your personal identity to be part of. And I think that's really the biggest influence.
Got it. Anybody else had anything to chime in on this? Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead, Spencer.
Well, just as I'm fortunate enough to travel, I don't think this problem exists outside of America like it does here, right? Our portions are absolutely huge. I don't see the amount, I don't have data, but I don't see the amount of food left over on people's plates that go away. So to answer your question, I think it's just being more educated and more aware and more curious of what exists in society outside of America and what their best practices are. So we can, bigger is always better in America, but it's not really like that anywhere else. And at what point can we move on from that and speak up and talk about it like we're doing right now, and make better decisions as a society here?
Yeah, I was going to add that waste is one of those very rare scenarios where culture, regulation, and franchisee, QSR, are all aligned on the same goal. Everybody wants net zero waste, right? It's bad for the franchisee if they have waste. It's bad for the environment. So it is a scenario that everybody is trying to solve, but until we have more automation, right, and we can get to cook to order, right? A lot of the things that we serve have to be pre-cooked, right? As we get more efficient through AI and the team members kind of step away from those production jobs, I think we'll get very, very close to zero. And that's been the challenge.
I want to come back to sustainability, because I'm seeing that the most upvoted question is related back to sustainability, but I'm going to take a thread from the top question that is a slightly different way to attack it. We started here on day one with the whole Blue Foods Day, right? And I think that case has been very well proven. as a live brainstorm maybe, how do you think a technology like AI could maybe help promote and advance some of those goals that we heard about on day one about getting more blue foods out there and getting more people on-ramping onto a diet that's centered around blue foods? This is for anybody.
Yeah, well, one of the things about AI on the healthy and then on the blue topic is the ability of AI to help nudge. So nudging is a very interesting. I know it's basically a form of marketing, but when you think about the interaction with the models with AI and the various form factors it's going to be in, the way that we nudge people toward things. We nudge people, our operators every day to do certain actions. We've started to nudge our consumers toward limited time offers, et cetera, in a totally different way than we used to. It's much more personal. I see as we try to influence cultures to go in a certain way, the nudge technique and that AI has made available is a very logical way.
Nudging, does that resonate with others or any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, our AI of the future will know us so well, and it will understand our values as well as our medical needs, our taste preferences. And so I think to the extent that we've expressed those desires, I think those nudges will become very meaningful in terms of how our personal AI communicates back with us in those food choices.
Got it.
And I see it like very tangibly in my own home. I have teenage daughters. You know, my daughter was making French toast this week for herself. She, of course, asks Alexa, I don't say her name out loud, for an advice. And then she went off and she created her own kind of version of the recipe. But we also were having a conversation the other day about protein, and she's an athlete, and she does need more protein. She actually does need sufficient. And we're talking about tuna, and like, canned tuna, oh yeah, you just go eat. And she's like, ugh. But if I can get some sort of digital tool to create a recipe that sounds craveable to her with that could be a great option for her.
Yeah.
But I think that it's actually about how we train all of the models and all of the touch points to say, how are they serving up blue foods more often in that response? Obviously, they're not going to put it in French toast. But, are they going to put that in her bowl that she's making, the Chipotle bowl she's making for lunch? Like, how do we get the models to actually prioritize some of these foods that we know are better for the planet, better for people, and taste absolutely amazing?
Okay. We're almost to the end of time, so I have a question I always ask on the end of my podcast, and I want to finish off with this. I'll start with you, Spencer, is if you had a crystal ball that could tell you anything you wanted to know about 2035, what would you ask it?
That's a good question. I don't know. I hope that we're able to build. Right when I arrived here, we started talking about sustainability, and I love the fish that are green that were once red. The fish that were red are now like green. So as someone that's passionate about seafood and our ocean and preserving that, I do hope that we're able to develop devices that can preserve our oceans, but not just our oceans here in America, that can preserve the ocean worldwide, given that we rely on seafood, and seafood's generally a really healthy alternative, but it may not be politically correct to eat certain types of seafood. So in 10 years from now, I think we'll see the phone go away and we'll see new devices, and I'm hoping that these devices will be in our oceans. They will protect them. They will make seafood more affordable, and they will make seafood available, and we'll see a lot of recovery in the seafood industry.
Okay. Mark, what question would you ask the crystal ball?
Yeah, so again, I'm on the risk management side more than anything. I'm very concerned about security. I'm concerned about food security for individuals. I'm concerned about the decentralization and fragmentation of society, both internationally and domestically. And I'm also a little bit worried about how, with all the money that's in the world right now, how the people of the world will react to technology, right? So we have this great opportunity. I think it's a transformational moment, but I also think we have a lot of skeptics and a lot of people who are going to be upended, and there's a huge change management piece. So I guess I'm kind of thinking back to like the 1970s when I was growing up, and I want that Coca-Cola moment of where we're one world again to be there when 2035 comes around.
Got it. Okay. And Justin, I would encourage you to do more of a TikTok-style answer here. We got 15 seconds. I want to get everybody on lunch on time.
For me,
What
it's
question?
what are those products of the future that made accessing health, taste, and sustainability just frictionless? Things that go well beyond a novelty, but just earn repeat purchase. And so that's where scale
What
and
will
change
those
can
things be?
happen.
Okay. Baker.
One of the hot jobs in 2035, it's just personal. Want to make sure my kids are going in the right thing.
There you go.
Jobs are changing. What's the hot ones?
It's all about the kids.
I would want to know, are we at general abundance, right? Has the Elon Musk hypothesis, as AI moves from software into machines and hardware, has that created general abundance?
Big finish. Sarah.
And then I would say, do we have a truly interconnected food system where a chef is connected equally to the local food bank as they are to actually all the way back to the farm?
And we'll end on that note. Ladies and gentlemen, please thank my audience here. Thank you.